That's recording.
Hello.
Hello.
Yes, I'm really glad I went to the woods to get the microphone.
Yeah, well, it was clearly worth it. We've just accidentally, we think, recorded a podcast with the wrong microphone, but I'm sure it'll be fine. I'm sure it'll be fine. It was worth it. Because, well, do you want to explain who we've been chatting to?
We've just been chatting to Birdwings Forest School in Australia, in Queensland, and this was our second attempt, wasn't it? Because we spoke about a month ago, I think, and then the recording was...
We had an amazing chat last time.
We had a great chat.
It was really, really
It was a bit more
fun, and it was very
waffly.
casual.
It was very waffly.
But the recording didn't quite...
No.
It just didn't...
And hopefully this one will be better, despite the fact that we recorded it on the wrong microphone. But we'll put it out anyway, and, you know, quality...
It'd be fine. You know who we are. You know what the podcast is.
Yeah.
High polished. This ain't.
Yeah.
So we had a chat with them.
With Narelle and Jen from Birdwings Forest School, and we could actually see them as well. We got a little webcam for the first time, which was quite a weird experience.
It's incredible. I looked it up before how far away they were, because we had a guess last time, and I think it was.
Was it 4,000 miles?
That sounds right. Let's have. 10,000 miles. 10,500 miles or 16,800 kilometres.
Amazing.
Which is crazy that something like Forest School is happening in so many sporadic locations. I know there's stuff happening in between, but it was so nice to talk to them again and to get that experience of like, I don't know, I felt really like beige. Because when we're going like, the kids go and see like, a woodpecker, a woodlouse, and they're like, well, a fucking snake nearly like had one
Except
of our
they
kids.
don't swear.
They don't swear because they're professionals.
Yeah.
But yeah, so.
They're talking pythons and echidnas and spiders, and we're talking slugs.
Slugs occasionally, occasionally signs of a badger. Yeah. But no, it was a good chat. I hope everybody enjoys listening to it. And
I hope everybody's okay in the biblical weather, because I mean, maybe it's because I have been indoors for 7 days now. No, not nearly 7 days.
Yeah.
Today was the first time I left the house. So I'm a little bit like.
This is completely off topic to the podcast, but you know we've both been drinking this kombucha that I've made.
Oh no! What have you found?
If you look in the bottom, you can see it's called
the Mother.
No, this isn't the Scooby. This is It's just called yeast remnants.
Oh, lovely yeast remnants.
Which is lovely. But anyway, enough about our yeast remnants. Enjoy the podcast.
Bye.
If you like this podcast and want to support more episodes, you can donate through Patreon. Visit patreon.com/Children of the Forest to show your support for the Forest School podcast.
How was the flood damage?
Yeah, well, today actually it was pretty good. Today I did a play group downriver, at least say 3 or 4 kilometres down the river, and I found one of our seated logs under a giant tree. Yeah.
Yeah, it's really changed our landscape, and we're missing a few things. So we're looking forward to the water dying down a little bit so we can go and discover them down the creek.
Oh, is it still not gone back yet? What?
Oh, it keeps raining.
Oh.
It's the wet season.
Yeah,
here too. It's like it's raining and grey and stormy, and it just seems to be never ending. I read something on Facebook last night that made me chuckle, which was like, it's day 512 of the storms, gangs of trampolines roaming the hedges, and no one can remember when they didn't look out the window. They're like, fuck's sake.
So it's a bit hard to hear.
Yeah, it is.
What? Because we're quiet.
No.
Any better? How's that?
Yeah.
There we go.
Yeah. Did you have your big dangerous tree cut down?
Yeah.
I had several cut down.
We did.
Which was kind of useful because the tree surgeons came down and, they were planning on chipping everything, and we just went, no, cut it down and leave it on the floor, because we can do all that stuff and the kids can play with it and do whatever. But it meant that they had time to walk around the site and helpfully go, oh, that one's fucked. Oh, and that one's fucked. Oh, and that was,
Oh no.
Well, better that than we didn't know about them, you know.
Yeah.
And
so much money though.
Well, it was a set day rate, so you just pay an amount, and we were like,
oh,
that's great.
I don't think we would have that.
No, they would do tree by tree.
Yes.
Yeah. Well, I think they thought it was going to be, because obviously they thought a whole day would involve carrying that first tree up the hill to the chipper, then moving all the wood chip, and so they were like, it is a day's worth of jobs. And then I'm a miser, so when they got there, I was like, no, you're valuable to me with a chainsaw.
And your eyes, your knowledge of trees. Yeah.
So
yeah, I wouldn't mind a few extra logs around the place. Now all of ours have washed away. Even the big tree trunks that had fallen down or had arrived in the last flood, even those ones have gone. So we've got nothing to sit on anymore.
Yeah, we have to sit on the ground and it's all a bit muddy. Everything's washed away.
Yeah.
But it's made all the flood sticks and leaves and branches, get pushed up against things. And so it's made natural amphitheatres almost
Yes.
of flood damage.
Yeah.
Like, oh, let's make a cubby in there.
Yeah.
We were just talking to a friend of mine who's involved in some environmental projects here, and one of the things they're doing in British landscapes is sort of unstraightening rivers, because for the sake of like industry and pretty Victorians who want nice straight things to draw maps on, all our rivers go straight, and so then when the rain comes it all shoots straight down, whereas if you have that meandering, and they've reintroduced beavers because they make it, you know, sort of like you're saying, build banks and stuff, and then that slows the water down.
Yeah.
Yeah, we've got.
There's nothing we can do to convince some of our children that we don't have beavers in Australia. So when they see these natural dams that the floods create with all the sticks and things all piled up, they immediately say, it's a beaver's dam. And yep, it's just so ingrained that beavers make dams, that's a dam, therefore a beaver made it.
But then I think that's similar to, like, even here, like, well, there's two bits of it, isn't there? There's the fact that all children, even inner city London children, have to learn when they're toddlers the noise farm animals make. Like the sheep goes bar, that even though they'll never see a sheep in their life, they have to learn those things. But then also that, like, if we do those songs of like what animals might be in the woods, is like tiger, gorilla, you know, stuff that you go, do you know about badgers?
And bluebirds. They always say bluebirds. What's your favorite bird? A bluebird. Like, do you mean a blue tit? Or are you thinking American style, like blue jay, you know, bluebird on my shoulder type American versions of it?
Yeah. I guess it depends what sort of songs you sing and what sort of nursery rhymes they hear. We have a lot of Indigenous songs that we sing, and a lot of songs about native Australian animals. So, yeah, it's just the beaver thing.
And hedgehogs. We don't have hedgehogs, we have echidnas.
Basically the same thing.
Yeah.
That kind of ties on to, you were saying in our chat before we started recording about, I'm going to butcher the word if you make me say it. What is your...
Complementary land.
There you go.
Yes, we would like to do an acknowledgement if it's okay with you. Have we started recording?
Yeah.
Oh yeah, like 10 minutes ago.
No. Yeah.
Well, we start everything with an acknowledgement to country, and that is an acknowledgement that the land that we work on and play on and live on and learn on has been looked after by a community for thousands of years before us. And it is held spiritually within that group as well. So they hold the heart of the land.
Yes.
And we are taking care of it. So when we do our acknowledgement with children before we start, we're reminding them that we are caretakers of the land and that we can't harm anything, or even in some places where we go, we can't even remove anything. So all the sticks and leaves and seed pods have to stay behind as well. Not in all places that we go to, but in some special places. So we are sitting here on Kumbermeri land at the moment, and we would like to pay our respects to the elders of the past and the present and the emerging, and thank them for looking after the land so that we can now.
Yeah, that's right. And that comes from a connection to the land. So we heard a great elder speak at a conference a few months ago, and he said, you can't play on the land or be on the land without talking to the land first. So you need to talk to the land and ask the land's permission. And once you make a connection with the land, then the land will make a connection with you.
And it will look after you.
And it will look after you. So we like to do that as part of our practice first thing in the morning and everywhere we go.
Are you think you're elder?
No, I wasn't.
So the only, obviously we don't have that history really here in England, but in a similar way about like asking permission, we only have one kind of tie to that really, which is we have elder trees. So I don't know, I'm guessing
Yeah.
elder trees, you know what they are. So
Yes.
provide elderflower and elderberries, and the pith inside the twigs, you can hollow them out, and so they're useful for lots of things. It's really ancient, and the name comes from the old Anglo-Saxon word or Celtic word for fire, because they used to hollow out the pith and use it as a natural like bellows, fire blowing pipe. And the legend goes that you've got to ask the elder before you take anything from the elder tree. And it's a really spiritual tree, and it's that kind of and people do look at you like you're slightly crazy when you say, right, we're gonna ask the tree's permission before we take the wood, and people are like, okay. But you do get groups on side of doing it. So you don't have to ask it out loud. You can just ask it in your head silently, and the kind of legend goes that there's a spirit that lives in the tree, and it's a female spirit, isn't it?
It's a witch.
And in some it's evil, and some it's good, because elderberries have kind of protected and nourished communities and stopped them from getting the flu and dying out from kind of lung related diseases, and kind of been quite protecting in that way. But also it's said to sometimes come alive through the spirit of the witch and run around the house and curse you and all this kind of stuff. So well,
it's very much a story, isn't it, of like the elder was so important, like you say, for medicine, but also for bellows and for food and for everything else, that I think there's an element of like, if I'm being completely like callous about it, of you go, right, we need to make up some fucking mental stories so the kids don't eat this stuff, and you just have to like embed values into a society through stories. And the way you do that is, some stories are, oh, isn't this wonderful, let's look after it, and some are, I think, more of the sort of Germanic style of learning is, don't go into the woods because there's bears and monsters and you'll get eaten, and everything, don't go off with strangers because they'll turn you into a puppet, and that sort of comes out of fear, doesn't it? I always think it's kind of interesting, because I think there'd be lots of communities around the world that have that idea of stewardship, and like, we're only here for a bit and we're looking after it. But it's interesting to hear you guys say that, so you ask another group of people. Maybe I've misunderstood the way you were, the way that was going across.
Well, the First Nations people, this is their land, and we're imposters. So we honour their traditions and their rich, diverse culture by acknowledging their history on this land that we are on at the moment. And it embeds into all of the aspects of our day, such as the lamandra plant, Jen.
We ask permission to take that.
The lamandra is a strappy grass that we use for weaving. It's everywhere and it's abundant, but in order to take the strappy grass from the plant, it can cut you. So we say to the children, ask the plant if it's okay to take it, grab hold of it, and pull it gently. If the plant agrees, it will yield to you. And that's a way to say, don't just like grab a great clump of it and pull the thing, because you'll destroy the plant. Just take one and ask the plant to yield to you. If it doesn't, don't take it.
Yeah, and you might not get a grass cut that way.
Yeah, you won't get cut and you won't take too much of the plant. Little stories that Indigenous people have shared with us that we share with the children, because Indigenous culture is our culture now in Australia. It's not now, it always was, it always will be.
Yeah. You guys do a lot of storytelling in your sessions. Do you tell a lot of Indigenous tales through stories that you tell?
There aren't a lot of Indigenous tales left, unfortunately. A lot of them have been lost along with the language and along with the culture. So we tell the stories that we know and that have been given to us from the elders that we work with and the community that we work with. But what we do in our approach is that we, through the experiences the children have, is we create our own stories that talk about the land and share wisdom about the land, particularly the children's experiences. And they become a new dreaming. It's not Aboriginal dreaming, but our stories are along the same lines of learning a wisdom through experience and being able to share that. And we talk to the children about the fact that they're story keepers, so that when we do go for a walk and something exciting happens, and we stop at that point again, then the children who were there in that experience as the story keepers for that experience, they tell the story and they share the wisdom. And so they've learned how to be quite good storytellers, to add to the drama of the story as well, and gather in their listeners and share the moment that happened right here, you know, for when someone was playing tag perhaps in the bush and not really watching, and then saw a giant python, really big python, and then what did you do? And so they were able to share that experience, and then we can have a little discussion about
safety
and why you don't go running through the bush without watching where you're going.
But you're right, Gemma, we do also tell traditional oral storytelling as well at different times of the day. So that's a sit down affair. Stories that we do know, stories that you might have told, stories that we know, stories that we write.
Yes.
Jen has written stories for 20 years that she has shared with me, and we now make stories together as well.
And with the children.
Yeah.
So last year our creek ran out of water and was completely dry, and that was really sad because we really need water to play because it gets very hot here. On those 40-degree days you really want somewhere to swim. And so the question was, where had all the water gone? It was here and now it is not here. So what's happening? So a story has arisen out of that we actually now tell seasonally every summer because the water disappears. And then when the summer rains come, the water comes back. There it is. It's in the creek again. And so it's about the children and their own inquiry. Did the trees drink it? Did all the animals drink it? Did it just get sucked under the ground? Does all the water run to the sea and then it doesn't fill up again? So all of those elements that the children were asking about was incorporated into the story. And so we would tell the story to them and get their feedback just via their reactions and engagement with the story, and adjust it as we go. And every time we tell it, it's a little bit different, but it's now become one of our traditions. As we tell that story in summertime now because the water always disappears.
Yeah. And last year, you probably know that we had a really bad fire season in Australia. It started in spring, which is early. Usually the fires are later than that. And they were directly affecting us, not at our site, but in the surrounding areas. So many of our families were really impacted by the fires. And we told stories each day, and they evolved as well over the days and the weeks. And that was picked up by different psychological forums as good practice, wasn't it?
Therapeutic practice.
Yes. Yeah. And that was amazing. We didn't even know that they knew, but I guess they were following what we were doing and then talking about it in their professional circles as a good thing to do. And storytelling, as you know, is that powerful.
And we also tell the stories where you get dressed up and be a bit silly as well.
Yeah.
So those are really important.
And I can't wait for that. I think it's in autumn. Do you know the one about the hat seller and he wears all the hats?
Oh, I think I have heard something like that, but I don't know.
Yeah, it's a traditional story.
Yeah, that's a great story. I love that.
I was just gonna so when we do so the let's call them native culture here is kind of a bit of a hodgepodge as the island's been invaded by different people. So there's bits of Germanic stuff here, and there's bits of Celtic stuff here, and then it's been French mostly for a couple of thousand years. But when we bring stuff in, like the elder, asking the elder tree, or going, oh, we can't do that because the animals are doing this. When I don't want to call it mysticism, but that kind of traditional knowledge, we've kind of, not intentionally, but landed in a place where we sort of drip feed it. It's very sporadic, and because it's part of the child-led nature of our setting, is that we just might sort of walk past the elder and offhandedly make a comment about it. Whereas if you were doing some more, if you were doing like outdoor learning with a school, you might take a whole group of children, you might stand around the tree, and everybody is focused on that, that one topic. Do you guys find that the children are sort of naturally interested in the native, the First Nation cultures, or do you guys drip feed it in, or have you ever had kids that just go, I'm not interested in that at all? How does that sort of play into the how do you marry up that very ancient and what can be maybe slower learning with modern children and their needs in a child-led setting?
It's a little bit of all of that, isn't it?
Yeah.
Because actually we've only just what we learned in primary school about our Indigenous history in Australia wasn't the truth. It's really only in the last, 20 or so years, I guess, that our country is waking up to the fact that we made a bit of a mess of things, a big mess of things.
Yeah.
And we are now finding out the extent of the damage that's happened to our Indigenous cultures across Australia, and it's awful. So there's a lot of misinformation still, and a lot of prejudice still, but also it's missing from our curriculum, and it's just starting to come back now. People are really starting to bring in Aboriginal culture and Islander culture into schools, and starting to look at the language and the stories in through schools, and connecting to country through identifying plants and animals, along with learning Aboriginal culture too. So for us, it's quite natural for us to stop and talk about what we know and share what we know in the same way that you do. But then sometimes we have, when we do our acknowledgement, we stop and we make a point of saying why we're doing it, don't we?
Yes, absolutely. And I think it changed in Australia, and the focus is on embedding Indigenous culture into everything we do in the early years, when the early years learning framework that the government came up with. I forget the year it came in, but that was designed to embed Indigenous culture into the early years so that it normalises, and for the next generation coming through, that culture is just embedded in what they know. It's just an everyday thing. So they understand that it is their culture now. They won't know any different. It just is. We speak the language. We sing the songs. We do the stories. We try and think in the way Tyson Yunkaporta's book Sand Talk. He that's an amazing book. That it's really good
on how Indigenous cultures will save the world.
Yeah.
Yes.
Do you find then that you're almost meeting parents, sort of supporting them on two fronts, because you're meeting them with this, first of all, this idea of like, we're going to go out into some risky wilderness, and we're going to go and do these things that are, high risk activities, and that the children have this independence, but also you're challenging is the wrong word, but you're putting out a different view than, like you say, they might have learned in school, that you're also going, here's some Indigenous culture that's different. So there's a lot that's different that the parents are meeting.
But I think as a society, Australia is growing to understand that this is our culture. Everybody is learning that. It started happening back when they had the National Sorry Day, the reconciliation, the apology from the Prime Minister. We have walks. We have a lot of important dates that we celebrate Indigenous culture. It's becoming more normal. So it's not foreign to people of our generation now. The only generation that it's too late is the older generation.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, that's a good sign, isn't it? That's a really positive sign that you would go, you know, a population that, you know, on average, are we living now to sort of 100, and you're only taking 20% off that and going, okay, they've got other stuff going on, let's say, and that, you know, you've been part of a movement that has had this effect on a wider society. That's got to be a big positive to take away.
Yeah, maybe Australia's growing up. Yeah, fingers crossed.
I've been asked a couple of times if I have Aboriginal heritage, based solely on the fact that we sing songs in Kumbameri language. But that's a beautiful opportunity to talk about why we would include this. It's not just a passing interest. I don't have Aboriginal heritage, but I think it's very important that we celebrate our own country's history and our own country's, well, continuing culture.
Yes, colonialism in Australia has left many impacts, and one of them has been our Indigenous culture. The other impact is the ecological change that has occurred. So that's why that's important for us as well, to work on projects that will assist the environment. And as you know, climate change is huge, and Greta and the next generation are the people that we will need to help us along that journey.
I wanted to ask you about animals. You mentioned python and echidna. Do you, when you take kids out to the bush, do you see wildlife and nature that is very different to wildlife that they would see if they didn't go out into the bush? And what is their response to that?
Yes. Yes, we see spiders every day.
Yeah.
We see
prawns,
leeches.
Yes. Ticks, unfortunately.
Ticks. A great big caterpillar yesterday that comes from a hawk emperor moth. So it would have been about this big, as big as, gigantic, that one caterpillar. So whenever we find things, we're learning as well. We say to the children, of course, I don't know what it is, but I'll find out. We'll go home and we'll look it up.
We get visited by wallabies and kangaroos. They keep their distance, but it's always a delight to see them. I mean, we've all seen kangaroos here, but it's still so wonderful to see them because they are wild creatures and they're enormous.
With snakes are almost a weekly occurrence. At playgroup today, there was a hose from hanging in the tree that looked like a snake, and the playgroup people were all saying, "Oh my gosh, is that a snake?" And I raced over, and another man raced over, a dad, and he said, "No, I think it's a hose." And I went, "Oh." And they all said, "Narelle, you're the only person that would be going, 'Oh, it's not a snake.'" I thought it was a tree snake. It wasn't. It was a piece of hose.
What did I hear them call the other day? The danger noodles.
Danger noodles.
Danger noodles.
Incredible. If you ever start up a second forest school, you've got to call it Danger Noodles.
Danger Noodles! To the rescue!
Yes. So we know they're there. We don't have many close encounters with the snakes, though. You know, they might be up in a tree or they're passing by on the path, but we've never really had too many.
No, one was hanging above my head when I went into the little gnome house area. And I promptly went, "Oh!" and banged my head.
May have to explain the gnome house.
Oh, the gnome house. The gnome house is this twisted vine place that's like wilderness, and you have to crouch down really low to get through it. And it's a bit spiky, but it's ever so exciting because all the vines are wrapped around an old tree stump. and there are almost windows at the bottom of the log, and then windows halfway up. And so we made some gnomes by cutting on an angle the pieces of wood and painting the faces, and they're all in the gnome house. And we go and check if they've moved every day. Where are the gnomes? They're on holidays at the moment because they got a bit washed away.
Gone on a cruise.
Yeah.
I don't like going in there at the moment because it's actually more full of mosquitoes than anything else. Mosquitoes have been horrible right now.
Yeah, I think there's something universal about animals, and particularly, like, I would say anything bigger than a cat, where we've talked before about that it's something you can't shortcut. So there's a lot of stuff that kids like. The instant gratification of stuff is very prevalent in a lot of their life. It's kind of, if you want that, you can get it now. If you want to see that thing, you can get it now. If you want to hear that song, you can get it now. But you can't cheat a wild animal. Like, if you move, they're gonna run, you know. And so the fact that you have been, it's almost like that you've been like accepted, or that you've been normalized to them, and you can't cheat that. You can't just go like, oh well, if you pay 100 quid, you can get closer to them. Do you know what I mean? There's something, I don't know, affirming about it.
Weren't we talking the other day about kids, like, it's an amazing learning opportunity that you can go, oh, listen, oh, look, there's a creature, and the child will go, oh, you missed it, and the disappointment. Oh my gosh, for some children it's like, oh, I wanted to see the woodpecker, like, where is it? And every day they go to the same part of the wood, like, hoping the woodpecker's going to be there, and it isn't. And that is an amazing learning opportunity for, like, well, yeah, nature doesn't, as you say, like, at your beck and call, just appear.
We do that with koala sightings, don't we? We go to the same tree, we saw the koala and hope it's there, but it's not always.
No. And so we do treat all animals with a lot of respect, but as part of one of the projects we're working on, we're working with Southern Cross University on a nature play project, and we had to design a play.
It was a learning experience. We don't normally plan our learning experiences, so that was a very strange thing for us.
It was, and we had to document it with the GoPro.
Yeah.
And we cut open a snake. It was dead. It was dead.
Dead one.
It was dead.
Very stinkily dead.
Yeah,
Yes.
a very dead snake. We cut it open to see what was inside it.
Mush.
Smelly stuff.
Bones. Yes. Let's not do that again.
No.
That was we've done that. We don't
we didn't like the learning experience for a start.
Yeah. It formalized something that we might have done spontaneously. In fact, we'd been wanting to dissect something dead for a while and gave us the opportunity, but because we had to document it, I don't know, put an edge on the spontaneity of the learning that the children could have had.
We like things to unfold and evolve. You know, the day unfolds like the same way you work, I think, and see what happens. We have ideas about what we might want the day to be like, and if anyone wants any of the opportunities, they're all there. But then it can all just change depending on the children and how they feel and what's happening.
And the weather.
Well,
yes.
Somebody we know is doing a PhD in kind of how outdoor well-being affects people who work outdoors. And, they were saying there's all this stuff about, going for a walk and forest bathing is all very good, but they wanted to look into, like, people who are outside all the time. Does it wear off, or does it build up, or does it, it's quite interesting. And they were saying, how, asking me about when I was teaching versus what I'm doing now. And they said, do you find you're less stressed? And I laughed for a long time. I was like, of course I am. But I said one of the amazing things is just that, like, with teaching and, like I said, with those, like, when you plan a learning experience, you're spending so much time stressing about it beforehand, and then on the day you're constantly assessing and going, this isn't what was on the plan, or this is what was on the plan, or whatever. And then afterwards you've got to reflect back and go, oh, how would I have changed that? How would I do it? Whereas I said, now I turn up and I go, I know the woods will have done something for me. It's not in a lazy, shirking way, but in a kind of like, well, I trust that I can arrive and whatever the forest and the children and the environment present, that I can just go with it.
That's it. It's the kids as well, isn't it? It's what they bring and trusting that will be enough, rather than just you as leader. Look, I'm giving you all this information, I'm giving you all these learning opportunities, actually trusting that the children will bring stuff enough with them in their minds that will create an amazing day, which they always do.
Yeah, and that comes down to years and years of experience as play workers, don't you think? That you can intuitively know that the forest will provide any opportunity for all the children who come.
And that you can respond to that.
Yeah.
I think it's it is metaphorically a big trust fall, isn't it? Especially the route that Gemma and I have taken from going from very structured teaching, where it was very much put on me, at least, that it was like, you better plan this down to, some minute detail, and you better differentiate it for all 30 kids, and you better do this, and then to have that, like you say, it's kind of building a relationship and a confidence in the natural environment to be able to metaphorically just fall backwards and go, okay, it'll be fine, and trust that it will catch you, which is really difficult to do. But like you said, I think a trust fall is the right metaphor, because it's not something that you can do slowly. I think you do have to just go, okay, eyes closed, arms crossed, here we go,
Because we work in sites that are quite large, and we go on adventures with the children, and we take them on quite a long walk. For our little Birdwings, which is our kindy program, we'll walk down the creek and scurry through the bush and maybe up the road now and then. And for our older bush club children on Fridays, we'll walk kilometres into the wild rainforest with them. We don't know what we're going to find, and most of our learning happens upon the journey itself, and that is what it is, isn't it? We can't plan for that.
And I guess because it's wild nature and it's not sites, they're different sites, anything could happen, and it's exciting. That's why we call them adventures. Yes. Let's go on an adventure. After morning tea, we always go on an adventure.
Have you guys had to sort of not challenge, but I think there's been a bit of a movement here. If you were being very scathing, people might look at forest school in the UK, and people from the outside who don't understand it might go, it's just playing in the woods, and go, I can't believe you need to be qualified to do it, or I can't believe you're charging X amount just to take kids out into the woods and play. And getting behind that and going, no, there's an ethos behind it, and actually we've got all this relationship building, and we've got this mentoring stuff and all of those things. Have you guys had similar things with like parents and communities around you, or do they get it straight away?
It's like the perception of forest school in Australia, is it?
Yeah, we were going to talk about that, because I think in the early years people are starting to understand, and this is parents and everyone else, but the government has a push down of academics in the early years, and then there's a push back, and then there's a push down and a push back, and we play this game. But at least at the moment, people are starting to understand that in the early years, children need to play. They learn through play. So the best way to play is in a natural environment. Not only will they feel good being in the natural environment, they can play with the natural environment. So in Australia, the term bush kinder or bush kindy is really taking off, and it's a term, and it's good. There's lots and lots of childcare centres that do bush kindy now, which is wonderful. But it's a 2-hour program, or it's a
1 day a week, which is also really good.
Yeah.
But there's so much that there's so much that we just don't know what's going to happen. We've got risk assessments coming out our ears, but there's still what happens on the spot is what we have to risk assess. really, isn't it? So it's quite different to a bush kinder experience, which is joyful and absolutely essential for children to be able to play in nature. But we're a little bit different in the respect that we're out all day, every single day, regardless of the weather.
Yesterday,
and we don't have a building.
Yesterday was really, really, really raining, and it only started raining after we arrived and already set up. And then it quickly turned into a great big muddy puddle right where we had all the bags. So we had to quickly undo everything and move up the hill and reset up everything and set up tents and tarps and gazebos and walls and everything. And I said to the children, and find raincoats. Well, look, we're going to make houses. Help me make the houses. So many houses.
These children are 2 years old. Yes.
Let's make lots of houses.
Isn't that amazing?
And
I have that experience that's different from if I was going completely the other end of the spectrum. You get that thing of like, you're doing the worksheet because we're doing the worksheet today because that's what the worksheet that I've decided we're doing. And then you get that complete, the face is appropriate. And then you get that other end of the spectrum where you're going like, we have to do this because it is raining.
It's a real reason.
Right?
It's not a made up reason because you're children. It's an actual real life situation.
The same with like, we have to have it. If you want to eat this food, we have to make a fire. You can't, there's no way around this.
It's not just like, oh, it's probably fun to make a fire. It's like, actually, that is a need and we need to do it.
Yeah.
And that's where the self-esteem thing comes in, I think, a lot with forest school and outdoor stuff, is that, you know, children get so much done for them. Life is so, practically
spoon-fed.
Yeah, so many needs on it for all of us, and not just children, actually. To have that sense of we needed to do something, and so we did it, and we could do it. We built our own shelter, we made our own.
And you have a value to the community. You know, everybody ate because I got some sticks, or everybody's bags were dry because I helped put that rope up, and that is the stuff that is, you know, in a classroom. Again, if I go back to that other example, give a fuck if Tommy on the other table finished his worksheet and you didn't finish yours, or do whatever. But if Tommy helped keep your bag dry, or Tommy helped, you know, you get that social fabric, and it's almost, I think it then helps to develop that kind of altruistic thing that we need as a society to keep going. We need to be able to go, I will do things because I can see how they benefit others. And that's the thing that I think here, state schooling doesn't necessarily hit in the best way. That's me being very middle of the road, actually. I think it misses it massively. But do you know what I mean? Whereas actually being outside and being all experiencing the cold and therefore helping each other means that then if you see someone who is cold, you've got a shared experience and you know how you can help them.
And we are helping parents to understand that teaching and supporting children with resilience is a good thing. Now that's really hard, but it's a process. It's a work in progress.
Children are capable of so much more than adults give them credit for. Even if it takes them a long time to learn it, they can still do it.
Yes. Come across like you're being like unhelpful, or that you're, you know, not providing in the right way. But it's kind of, you know, we do quite a lot of, if we're doing something, or not doing something, if we're not getting involved in play, or we're not getting involved in them putting their coats on, but there's a parent nearby, we've sort of hit upon the technique of just verbalizing why we're not doing it, as if we're talking to ourselves or we're chatting, so that they don't, you know, you're almost controlling the narrative, so they're not spiraling in their heads going, oh my god, that kid's struggling to put their coat on, and Lewis has just stood here, you know, not laughing.
Or maybe.
All that happened today. Somebody needed to get their raincoat on, and I heard Jen say to him, you can do it. You're almost there. You've got one arm in. Reach around the back. Grab the other arm. You're almost getting it. Try a bit more. And he's just almost melting down. And you just kept talking to him, and I walked away, but I heard him get really frustrated, but he was sort of flapping, going, I can't do it. But the more you talk to him to say, you've almost got it, And then he did get it. Of course he got it. Because we knew he could do it.
That's one of the things that I think, like you say, comes with experience of being outside, comes with experience of play working, of that is almost knife edge pitching, isn't it? Of like, if you pitch this slightly wrong and you're say that encouraging about something they genuinely can't do, then you're creating, if I was being extreme, you're creating trauma. But if you don't attempt it a little bit, then you've missed out on some resilience opportunities, and it's really hard sometimes to pitch and go, we have it sometimes, don't we, when we
don't know a child very well, especially, or you're thinking, is there actually a real reason why today they can't do that? Maybe they're a bit unwell, or they're hungry, or they're tired, or they're emotional, and that other reason. So it's that very finely pitching of reading all the signs of a person and going, okay, today is a day where, as you say, you're just flapping, you can do it, or actually there is a need there and I do need to help you.
Yeah, and that comes from a lot of experience, doesn't it? And knowledge of development as well.
Oh, and also of the children, you can tell when they're just trying to get you to do it for them. And they're perfectly capable of doing it themselves. And when they need help, and when it is too hard because they're tired, or maybe they're coming down with something. But when we come back from our adventures, we're all completely wet, head to toe. We've been in the river, we've been playing, we've been walking through the waters and slipping down on the rocks and climbing up, and we are wet and tired and hungry, but we cannot eat until we change our clothes. And as Narelle and Claire and I don't change the clothes, they have to do it. And they're 18 months, 2 years, 3 years, 4 years. And
we talk them through
it, and it takes 45 minutes to take the clothes off and put the new clothes on. But we get there, and then they really, really want their lunch by that stage.
Yeah. I was again on this PhD lady that was with me yesterday, and she's saying things about being outside. And I said one of the things that not only are you tired, but you are also tired and hungry, and you've got to park that completely and go, okay, I'm going to shelf my needs for a minute because you need to eat your food, and then maybe you don't eat until you get home, and then all of that sort of stuff.
Yeah, well, we eat 3 times a day with the children, so we're never hungry, really. We're just eating. Again, it's eating time.
It takes so long.
It's okay, yeah. But you're right. We could certainly do with a cup of tea whilst we're assisting for 45 minutes with the dressing. And it sure would be a lot quicker and easier if we did it all for them. There'd be no learning happening.
And do you think that's part of the top-down push, like you say, is that there's not time in state education to allow 45 minutes for changing clothes because it's PE and we've got to be outside in 5 minutes? Otherwise,
can you imagine that? Yes, we have no timetable. Well, it's built into the flow of our day. We know it's going to take a long time, so we come back in time to start that process. And before they get too hungry.
And we've seen the results because we work with school kids as well on the holidays. We've seen the 7 and 8 year olds that can't get their clothes on and off because they also swim and they need to change their clothes, and they come and that's not good. If you can't dress yourself at 7 and 8, come on.
I know, it's really it's very strange. And the children who've been with us from 18 months, who are now 3 and 4,
they're very good at dressing.
They take seconds, so we can see the product there.
So just before because we're getting close to the hour mark, and you guys were mentioning last time, but we had some issues recording it, about your, what are we saying, starting up an association?
Oh yes, it's done. Sort of.
We have a little group of educators and outdoor teachers and nature mentors like ourselves from southeast Queensland who have got together and started the Australian Association for Forest School Leaders here. And It's not incorporated yet, but it's on its way.
Yeah.
And it's just really good to have a community, because our focus of working outdoors with children is a little bit different to the bush kinder focus that's happening around the place in Australia. And it's nice to have a community to share this work with. So we're looking forward to that growing. So it's just a little baby group at the moment.
So is the purpose of the group to network, or to sort of uphold some values, or to unionize and strike, and where's it going?
To provide ourselves with training for each other as well. We've all got skills that we can share and help each other out with, because there is no ongoing training for forest school leaders here. We've got the Forest School Learning Institute who come out, and we can do updates with them. I did do my level 3 with them when they started here. I think it was 2017. But there's no requirement to have the level 3 in Australia. There's no certificate required, because there's no forest school in Australia. And most of our training is just done by people who are experienced and love being outside and have done lots of work in nature with children. And it's really growing quite differently here. And we love that it's open for anybody who have experience with children and experience with nature to come together and learn from each other.
Yes, and we will be doing some training coming up, and that's all on our website. But there are other people that would be doing training as well. We did some with Sun and Stars Bushcraft, and we did some knife skills and some knots and rope work, and that was great fun. That was really good. Oh, and he worked with tarps as well, the square tarps.
Yes, and also a bit of nature connection as well too. And that's our thing. We like to help people find a way to work intuitively with nature, and bring a bit more play work into things. Play work, I think, is also a fairly new concept in our very structured Australian schools.
Yes, it's amazing. They don't quite get that yet. That's a new thing in Australia, the concept of play work.
I think it's gaining momentum.
It's almost been and gone.
But we have hope. It'll come back.
Yes, we need to revive it.
Yeah.
Well, I think it's going to wear a forest school mask, and I think it's going to sneak in that way. I think you'll see a lot more people sort of, I guess it is sneaking it in through the back door, if you like. Of forest school over here is a buzzword, and I'd say we're at the peak of a wave of everything outdoors was called forest school, and we're now sort of starting to get a bit of a snowball towards people going, well, actually outdoor learning is a different thing to forest school, and bushcraft school is a different thing, and that kind of differentiation will, I think, lead more people who have a play working bent, if you like, into a forest school avenue, because it doesn't fit in bushcraft school and it doesn't really fit in outdoor learning, but it does come through through forest school.
There was an article in the Guardian newspaper about, is your child's forest school really forest school? And that was pretty amazing for us all as a community to read that and go, okay, well, actually,
is it just a gimmick?
Yeah, is it just a gimmick? Is it a marketing ploy? Or are they actually using the forest school principles? Here's what the Forest School Association is, this kind of stuff. And that was,
well, a bit like you guys were saying, that although we have a Forest School Association, they're not a governing body here. They have no, we have no right to stop anybody who just says, oh, I'm going to start a forest school. You don't have to have any qualifications. You don't have to have done any sort of courses. So again, the Forest School Association here is working really hard to champion some core principles and to provide, for us, it's been a really good resource as a shield is possibly the wrong term, but when schools that we've worked with have said, oh, could you do Vikings this half term? We've been able to not just go, well, we don't want to do that. We've been able to go, our association body won't let us do that.
Unless the kids, of course, arrive one day and go, we want to play Vikings, then of course we're not going to plan that in advance.
Yeah, so for us, having an association has been really good to network and to meet people, and also to hold up those standards and go, it is this and it isn't this. And it sounds a bit like that's what you guys are going for as well.
Those are the conversations that we'll be having here as well.
We've thought about that, and we mentioned it at the first ever meeting we had, and we would like to do similar things. Core principles, maybe memorandums of understanding, lots of good things. And just basically support each other and promote each other maybe too.
So the buzzword here is nature play at the moment. So Forest School hasn't really caught on as such, but nature play seems to be a fairly new concept over the last, maybe the last 10 years. It's grown in popularity. But it really means just getting outside and be outside, and you can do nature play in your curriculum as well. And if you need to do Vikings outside, you can do Vikings outside. My kids do Vikings at school still too, but so you can take your lessons outside and do outdoor learning too, and that's nature play. And you can bush kinder is nature play. What we do is nature play. So I think that's another name for it.
You can even bring buckets of nature into your early childhood centre and play with them.
And that's nature play
too. Nature play too.
It's a spectrum. Is that what we're saying? It's a spectrum.
And that's okay, at least they're doing something. That's great. Raw materials, loose parts, yay, play.
I can't help feeling though that the best sensory experiences are really outdoors. And playing with real mud in the mud. Yes, if you want mud.
Well, before we let you go, because it's evening for you guys, is there anything else you want to add? Do you want to let people know where they can find out about you or about the training that you're putting on?
Yes, our website is birdwingsnature.wordpress.com. That's it, isn't it?
Yes, it is. It is. Facebook page is Birdwings Forest School, and Instagram is Birdwings Nature.
Yeah. And so all our courses will be on there, and we've got nature mentoring and play work coming up. And we like to do journaling as well, visual documentation and creative journaling with children. So we've got one of those coming up too. And at the end of the year, the ecological storytelling, which is a full day workshop on how we incorporate stories in terms of coming to know yourself within your local environment and about your local environment, and creating stories to share that way. Yeah.
Welcome to all Put me on.
Yeah. Well, one day we'll work out how to do it online, but we're too busy working.
I want to do your things
too.
I know. You do great cooking on the fire.
Yes, that's not something we do a lot of.
Yeah, we will do more this winter on the fire. You inspire us. Thank you.
We'll have to meet somewhere, like maybe in Turkey, somewhere in the middle. So we can...
No, Bali.
Yes, come to Bali.
Okay. Well, we'll let you go. Thank you for your time, guys.
Thanks a lot. Great to chat with you.
Bye.
Bye.
If you like this podcast and want to support more episodes, you can donate through Patreon. Visit patreon.com/Children of the Forest to show your support for the Forest School podcast.